Hey guys, I'm Think Tank. I've spent the last year recreating, or perhaps more accurately, better realizing my first game, Sewer Sweep, in Godot. I'm actually completely new to Godot because Unity has been my engine of choice for years, mostly because it was what I learned to use in college. I've done game jams, worked on various projects, and even released an app called Real Chimes using it. This gave me a pretty good amount of experience with Unity, and I was perfectly happy to keep using it. However, after the whole Unity runtime fee scare, I decided that I should probably see different game engines. My first thought was to go back to GameMaker, which was my first game engine. But to me, GameMaker has always felt sort of like a junior engine. I know that some neat stuff has been made with it, but I really didn't want to pay for an engine that wasn't what I was looking for, so it was between Unreal and Godot for me. I do have some experience with Unreal, and I think it's a neat engine. But I always wanted to try Godot because I heard it was a fresh and lightweight engine. Also, it's completely free. No licensing or sales related fees, which was kind of the whole problem Unity had in the first place. I'm still a good way off from finishing it, but I've learned a lot already and I want to talk about it, especially in contrast to Unity. So, to get right to the point, is Godot actually a good engine? The short answer is yes. At least in my opinion. The long answer is more complicated, but still yes. The thing is, Godot is still so new, relatively, that it has some issues that should be fixed, some quirks that I think maybe should be addressed, and some design choices that are questionable compared to more established engines. Also, it's more subjective, but there are a few quality of life things that I really missed from Unity that if Godot had would really go a long way for me personally seeing it as a contender for my favorite engine. On that note, and before we go further, I just want to say that these are all my own opinions and experiences. I'm just a guy who likes making games, and not John Carmack. That'll be his name. I know any issues I experienced or things that I don't like might not be shared by others, or that I may have missed fixes or explanations for them. I only want to share about my time with Godot and my takeaways to hopefully help inform others, and maybe get some people talking. So please be respectful if I get some stuff wrong or see things differently, and we can all have a good time. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get into the video. The thing that first struck me as nice about Godot is its ease of use. Basic stuff is very easy to do. It's simple to move a character around the screen, add a timer, get collisions between bodies, and even do raycasts. It's really nice for getting a prototype running as fast as possible, or if you're a beginner. I've gotten used to how to do these things in Unity, but I'd be lying if I said they were easy to do, especially if you were new. Having basic stuff like a timed event can be very difficult for a new developer to understand and can be discouraging. Heck, I still forget how to do basic stuff in Unity sometimes. Kinda often, actually. The layout of the user interface further adds to its ease of use. Aside from just looking nice, finding features is intuitive thanks to how well designed it is. I can quickly find whatever I'm looking for, and I really haven't had any issues finding things I need while I'm in the editor, which I can't say about Unity, unfortunately. I also really like Unity's animation solution. From what I've read, it seems to be more capable than Unity's actually, but I haven't really dug into it yet, so aside from knowing that it's easier to just do basic animations than Unity is, I can't really say. Godot actually has two different kinds of animations. The standard animation, which is more like Unity's, and sprite animations, which are designed to be easier to use for making, well, sprite animations. I love how simple and easy it is to set them up and to update or replace the sprites later. I just drop in a sprite sheet, quickly slice it up, and then set the frame rate I want, and I'm good to go. The absolute and objectively best thing about Godot's animation system, though, are its events, which are much better than Unity's. You can add any kind of function call as an event regardless of the number of arguments or the type of those arguments. Unity's animation events are super limited in comparison. You can only call functions with a maximum of one argument and only of basic types like strings, floats, or ints. It's my understanding that if you really want to use animation events in Unity, you get a plugin like Animancer because Unity's built-in option is just not that good. Finally, and despite an issue I have with the scene tiles that I'll talk about later, I like Godot's tile maps. I just did another game jam with Unity, and after coming back from making a Mario-inspired platformer, I can definitively say that I much prefer Godot's tile map system as a whole. Its system is just so much more cohesive and easier to approach. I especially like the tile map atlas when it comes to flexibility and replacing or moving tiles in the atlas. Unity's tile map implementation doesn't feel like it was designed all at once to me, so there are things that seem like afterthoughts or just not well planned out. Apparently, Godot's tile map system was worse before, but it got a huge overhaul in 4.0, so if you'd tried Godot before and didn't like their tile maps, it's worth a second look because the new system is much better. Regardless of any potential shortcomings that it may have, I think Godot is the perfect engine for someone just getting into making games. For all the reasons I mentioned before, plus the fact that it's every bit a real game engine but doesn't feel as imposing as Unity or Unreal, makes it a good starting place. I wish I could say there was nothing I didn't like about it, but there are a few things. They range from mild annoyances to things that really bother me, so let's talk about that next. I haven't found any bugs per se with Godot, but if there is one thing I would call a bug, it's the project not updating certain script changes. For example, if I duplicate a script, the namespace gets messed up. Godot recognizes the duplicate file as the original, and even after changing its name, I need to reload the project to get Godot to recognize the original file again. Now, before you say, well, just don't duplicate scripts then. That's just the easiest way to reproduce the issue. It also does this with other kinds of things randomly as well. Sometimes adding a property to a parent class won't show up on child classes until I reload the project, and sometimes other random things just won't update. It threw me for a loop when I first ran into it, but at least it's fixed by just reloading the project, which is pretty easy to do in Godot. If you're a new user though, especially someone unfamiliar with making games in general, it could really be frustrating. Overall, I think Godot does a pretty good job with the naming of methods and communicating what you can expect from them, but I did run into a situation when trying to validate types. If you use the getClass method on a class that inherits from a base class like CharacterBody2D, it returns the base class CharacterBody2D instead of the inherited type, even when the class name is explicitly defined. You can use the is comparator on a variable to check if it's of the type you want at least, but I think it would be better if Godot changed getClass to getBaseClass so you know what to expect in return. There's also the move and slide method for applying velocity changes to a body node, which I think doesn't immediately convey what's going on or even how to use it. I probably would have named it apply velocity or something similar, but once you know what it does, it's not so confusing. Apparently, in older versions like Godot 3, the syntax made more sense, so this feels like something that should have been completely renamed instead of keeping the old method name. Next up are issues I have that stem more from design decisions by the developers and are less objective, but I still want to talk about them. First off, Godot doesn't have a try-catch in GD script, and this is kind of annoying if you're used to using it in other languages. It's a very nice feature to have if you're trying to load files or validate something else that you can't always be sure will work because it's out of your control, but the developers apparently didn't think that was necessary, so they did not include it in GD script. However, at the very least, you can just use a C# script in any case where you would need a try-catch, because that does support it, and you can just mix and match languages in separate scripts, so there's at least that workaround. It would still be nice to have, but it's not a deal breaker, just something that kind of annoyed me when I ran into it. Another design decision I take issue with, and that bothers me way more, is disabling nodes and their scripts. If you've used Unity, you'll be familiar with just how easy disabling game objects when you're not using them is. Unity will handle that object, all its scripts, and all of its child objects not receiving any callbacks, registering any collisions, playing animations, or displaying sprites or models. In Godot, you have a very confusing system of disabling all these things separately, and it kinda really sucks. I haven't seen anyone say that they like Godot's approach better, and there doesn't even appear to be an agreed upon best practice for disabling nodes. This is honestly almost a deal breaker for me. I'm going to work on understanding how to get the same or similar functionality for Godot in the future, and maybe it won't be so bad then, but just trying to wrap my head around this is a pain, and I don't think it should be so confusing to do something that should be so straightforward. If you're coming from another game engine, these will probably be way more of a sticking point for you, but if this is your first game engine, you're not likely to mind them as much. I don't want to be so hard on Godot though, because there are always things that you won't like about a piece of software, and there are plenty of things that Unity does that I think are annoying too. I'm just more used to them, so they don't stand out to me as much anymore. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the actual issues I have with Godot, so let's move on to the next section. Okay, now for the things I wish Godot had but aren't issues. I'm going to preface this entire section by saying that the version of Godot I'm on is now pretty outdated. I also wrote this script months ago, and since then some of them will be addressed or added in Godot 4.4. That's one of the things that really motivated me to get this video finished, actually. This is excellent, and the pace of development is one of the best things about Godot. There are features and even issues that Unity has had for years at this point that still haven't been addressed, so it's nice to see how quickly the engine is growing. I'll point out the upcoming features when I get to them. The first thing I'd like to see is complete support for static typing. If you don't know what that is, you won't miss it. It's only something you'd expect or get used to if you've used languages like C# or Java. All of Godot's variables are of a type called variant, shortened to var, and can accept almost any other type of data assigned to them, which is really nice for a beginner since you don't have to worry about integers, floating points, longs, or any other data types, and can just focus on learning the art of programming. If you've got some experience though, you'll quickly find that needing to pay attention to what type each variant is actually more helpful since it helps keep things organized and allows you to expect the kinds of data you'll be getting or using in your code. Godot actually does support static typing by letting you specify what data type a var can accept, but it isn't required, which I think is a nice middle ground. However, it isn't complete, and not everything can be statically typed. I know that dictionaries specifically do not have the ability to have a defined type of object that they accept, and while it's not really a big deal, it would be nice if they supported static typing for everything, simply for consistency's sake. This was one of the things addressed since I started writing the script, so it will be added in Godot 4.4, and I'm very happy about it. Just make sure you go update to the newest version when it comes out, and you'll be good to go. Secondly, and probably the thing I miss most about Unity in Godot, is the amazing runtime editor it has. In Unity, you can see everything happening in the editor while the game is running, and can easily manipulate or debug things. Godot actually has a similar feature under the Remote tab in the editor, but it doesn't show object names, it just shows object IDs, which are just strings of numbers and letters, which makes checking if something's getting assigned correctly difficult. More importantly, it doesn't show the game running in the editor window like Unity does. In Unity, you can also see everything happening in-game mirrored in the editor's scene window, which makes adjusting things on the fly much easier. In Godot 4.4, they're actually adding this, and it behaves like Unity's. I never expected them to do this based on what I'd read about how difficult it would be, so I'm very excited and I cannot wait to try it out. I'd also really like the ability to have scene tiles associated scenes be created in the editor when you paint them. It's the only thing they don't do better with their tile maps than Unity does, and it's sometimes a necessary feature if you want to be able to adjust properties of the scenes attached to the files, which you can only do at runtime in Godot. Again, not something wrong with Godot exactly, but it is something I would like to have and I think is incredibly useful when you need it. With the pace of development Godot has, I honestly wouldn't even be surprised if they added this in the near future. I did not expect them to add a runtime editor, so this is basically nothing compared to that. So we'll see. I realize that it might seem like I have more issues with Godot than things I like about it, but that's really not the case. Godot has a nice feel to it, a lot like Blender. If you don't know, Blender is a free and open source 3D creation suite that I've been using for many years, and many other indie developers use in concert with other game engines. Godot is also open source, and much like Blender, is very user-focused and constantly evolving. So any issues I have with it now have the possibility to be addressed quickly by the community, as has already happened even since I started writing this. So as a whole package, I really like Godot, even if it has a few shortcomings here and there. That being said, Godot isn't going to be for everyone, and I admit that it's not really at the same level as Unity and certainly not Unreal. It does have a lot of promise though, and I think it's headed for a similar level of respect and use in the future, much like how Blender is now being used professionally on shows and movies. Right now, Godot really shines as an engine to make 2D games quickly and easily, which is better for new developers, but even if you're an experienced developer, I'd recommend trying it out for your next game jam or small personal project. As for me, I'm going to keep using Godot, and you can follow my journey here on my channel. I'm always open to help with that goal, and if I got anything wrong in this video, or if you have any tips, feel free to let me know. Also, I am currently looking for work and would love to get hired on with a real game studio or a team making games. If anyone watching this is interested in hiring me, you can contact me using the link in the description and I will send you my resume or any other information you might need and discuss any details with you. As much as I love doing this by myself, I want to be part of a team and get some industry experience. So if you think I could be a good addition to your team, I'd appreciate it if you reached out to me. Thank you for watching this video, I really appreciate it, and I hope you'll stick around for more. You can find me on Twitter here and Instagram here. Like the video if you did, subscribe if you want more, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!